With this video, I'm going to do a little bit of a recap and review for the CIS 122 class. Got a number of people that are struggling in this class, and that's no surprise because we always have students struggle with this class. So taking it in the online environment may not be ideal for folks who are really new to this. But I think if you stick with it and you put in the time, I think you can do it. I'm not sure how many of you have been putting in the 15 hours or more a week that I've asked you to put in on this class, because I know that's how much it's going to take. But if you have been and you're having trouble with the class, you need to communicate that with me. And I've only had 2 or 3 students actually tell me that they need some additional help. So I've got a lot of students in this class right now, and I'm not hearing from many of you, and some of you aren't doing any of the work. So if you're not putting in the time, you may not want to consider paying your fees and tuition for this class. So be really thoughtful about that. I think I tried to warn you very clearly about that at the beginning of the term, that this is a class that's going to require a lot of commitment on your part, and if you don't have the time and or the commitment, you certainly should not continue with the class. So just for review and recap, I don't expect students to know a lot about programming. All I expect you to be able to do is to watch the videos and practice those things that I show you in the videos. The videos so far have been quite simple, and all I'm asking you to do is to type in the code that you see in the video and try it out in VBA and run it and see what happens. You can play around with it a little bit. I'm not expecting you to understand everything you're doing, but you certainly should be able to duplicate what I do in the videos. All you have to do is watch the video multiple times if you're having any difficulty. You can always hit pause, you can rewind it back, you can watch it over and over again. For many of you, I would clearly expect that you're going to have to watch the video more than once, or more than twice, and maybe more than 3 times. So this is a complete expectation on my part. So here we are in Excel, and I want to go to the Developer tab because I want to get into Visual Basic. So I'll click on the Developer tab, and I'll click on Visual Basic, and I want to add a code module. Now, someone asked a question about these 2 panels. You'll notice both of these panels actually have close boxes on these panels. So the VBA Project panel here at the top, you might accidentally close that. Then you're left with just the Properties panel, and you might actually close that, and you have nothing. Well, if you did a little exploring around, you'll notice, of course, you have a View menu. In the View menu, you can view a lot of different things. So the Project window is the first one I closed. There's the Project window. And the Properties window was the second one I closed. And there's the Properties window. And now I'm back to where I was. Now they aren't sized exactly the same, but of course I can grab the little size box right here and drag that around. Now that's one of the reasons why we ask people to have at least CIS 120 and CIS 131 before they attempt this class, because they are much more knowledgeable about a wide variety of software products and how to do various things with computer software. So if you're having trouble just finding things in the menus, knowing how to click on things or move your mouse around to explore various user interface features, again, that's going to be a disadvantage for you. So I'm going to right click here in my project pane, and I'm going to essentially insert a new module. That new module, of course, is going to give me that new code window. I told you very clearly at the beginning to go into your Tools Options menu and make sure you have the checkbox that says Require Variable Declaration. Now that has caused a little bit of a problem with some of the book's code, because the book does not require variable declaration on some of its code, and the code therefore does not run because the variables in those programs have not been declared. I've created 2 videos that discuss that. If you have any questions, please, you need to ask questions to help you if you're getting stuck. So I'm going to put in a little sub right here. I'm going to say sub 1. And that little sub is very simple, and I'm going to declare a couple variables. I'm going to declare a number variable, just call it num, and I'll call that long. That basically declares a memory location. That's what the dim is all about. I've had a number of students ask me what that dim means, and that was in one of the early videos. If you didn't understand it, you should have immediately sent me an email and said, what the heck did you mean in that video when you said dim? So again, you have to ask questions. Please step up to the plate. So dim basically says we're declaring a variable. And so what that means is we are reserving memory storage for a numeric variable. And a numeric variable basically means that I can store a number there. And that is what that means right there when I say long. A long is a 32-bit value in the computer's memory. Essentially, the easiest way to think of it is it's just a whole number between approximately 2 billion in a positive and negative 2 billion in a negative. That's what you can store in that particular location. The next variable I'm going to declare is just a string variable, so I'll just abbreviate that str as string. And this variable, of course, will hold a string of characters. So we reserve memory again. That's what dim's all about. Reserving memory for characters. You can just think of it as characters. Characters you might type on the keyboard. So now I have those two variables. Now if I wanted to actually store something in those two variables, I can just do it with an assignment statement. So the left-hand side is the memory location. I do the equals symbol for assignment, and I could store a number in there. So I could say, let's just store 99 in there. I could store any number I want in there. I could store a really big number in there, but I can't store a number bigger than several billion, or I'll be out of luck because the computer will say, uh-oh, error, can't do that. I could store a negative number in there if I wanted to. So I can just say, let's put a negative value in there. The string variable is a similar idea. I can store a string of characters in there, and a string of characters has to be enclosed in quotation marks. So it could be somebody's name, could be my name. Notice I typed a space inside my string. A space is just another character on your keyboard. It could be a string of, it actually could be a string of numbers if you wanted to, but it's still a string because it's inside the quote marks. That can be extraordinarily huge. In fact, a string can hold up to 2 billion characters. Now, you're never going to store a string that big, but if you wanted to, you could give it a shot. A string could be some funny symbols that maybe you type on your keyboard. So, you know, all the various symbols you can type on your keyboard, letters, numbers, you name it, that's the string. I also showed you how you could input values from the user by using the input box. So if I say input box and I prompt them for a number, it will prompt them on the screen for a number and then store it into that variable location. I could also store a string using the same technique with the input box. And again, the prompt is a string. You'll notice I'm putting it in quotes here. And it will store the value into that variable, into that memory location. And now I can also then print them out. I could say MsgBox, and I could say something like num is colon space, and all that's inside the string, ampersand, and print the num. I can do another MsgBox and do the same thing, of course, with the string. str is, and that ampersand, and glue that string variable on the end there, and it'll print that string. It'll retrieve the string from memory and print it to the screen. And finally, I showed you how you can actually access cells on your spreadsheet. So I can take my number and store it in a cell on the spreadsheet. So I can say cells 1, 1, that's row, column, and I can store my num into that sheet location. I can do the same thing with my string. I can say cells 2, that's the row, 1, column, equals, or is assigned the value of str. And then later, of course, I could grab a value out of the cell and I could actually print it. So I could say MsgBox, and if I said MsgBox, row 2, column 1, is, that's my string, and then I just say ampersand, and if I wanted to print that on the screen, I say ampersand cells 2, 1, and that will retrieve the value from that location on my spreadsheet and go ahead and print that to the screen. So all of these are some of the basic ideas we've talked about of actually declaring variables, storing values in those variables, using the input box to retrieve a value from the user running the program, storing a value into a spreadsheet cell, retrieving a value from a spreadsheet cell. All of these are concepts that I expect you to practice. I've given you some sample code to type in to practice that. And if you have any questions about this particular piece of code, you need to ask. You need to be specific. You need to tell me which video, what lines in that particular program are not working for you. You can also send it to me via email as an attachment. You can put a comment right in your code window and send it to me as an attachment. Put your question right in that comment. So please let me know what's working for you. Let me know what's not working for you. You're just going to have to ask. You're going to have to take that initiative. Thank you.